Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is JGOD. In today's video we're going to focus on the best class setups for the Pro Series as well as League Play that will be coming mid-February. I actually ran a poll in my community tab asking, and after 15 hours and 2,200 votes later, you can see that yes, ASAP this video needed to be made. So that's what this video will focus on, is the top 5 best class setups. It's going to actually be a little bit more than that. I think I have a total of 7 class setups in here, but it'll be a little bit of variations of the primary class setups that you're going to see when you actually go into these competitive playlists. So keep in mind that the class setups will account for all the different restrictions that are included in these types of competitive playlists. If you're unsure on those restrictions, I'm going to leave a link down to my video in the description below, as well as the 2 different links where you can kind of read through all the different restrictions. Personally, I am a fan of watching pros play at competitive events just because you get to see a more balanced version of the game we play, but in addition to that, it's played at a very high level. So starting off with our class setup that takes the 7th spot is going to be the Paladin. It's a sniper rifle class setup, and it's pretty much only used in search and destroy. So for the class setup, you can see that we are running FMJ with stabilizer, and then we also have that Mozu to clean up those close quarter kills. Then we have a pretty perk heavy class setup using engineer, lightweight, dexterity, and dead silence. The only real difference I would see in this one is sometimes they would run tac mask instead of engineer, but for the most part this is pretty much the class they'd use, especially since you're not able to run high caliber and competitive. So the next weapon we'll go ahead and talk about is the ICR, and I think this one's used more specifically in control and search and destroy because you want to be as accurate as possible. You can kind of post up for a while, versus in hardpoint it's a little bit more dynamic. There's a lot going on and you're going to be forcing those gunfights. You're going to need to win more of those. So with the ICR, going to be ideal for S&D and control. And the recommended class setup is the reflex sight, double grip, as well as long barrel. The only perk you'll need to run is dead silence because you want to keep your movement pretty much as silent as possible. And then you have equipment. You can either use the concussions or the trophy system. At the end of the day, it's just a preference of what your team needs. And since the body armor isn't as big an issue it is in public matches, we are not running that FMJ, as you can see in the class setup. So the next thing I want to talk about is the use of score streaks. Obviously there's a little bit of restrictions on score streaks, so you're going to want to choose what works best for you, but I do have a few recommendations if you're not quite sure what you should be picking, how it could be useful. So let's go ahead and talk about those real quickly. So these are the 3 most common ones you'll see when you watch a competitive match. You got the lightning strike, the hellstorm, and the sniper's nest. Also keep in mind that the fact that 0 is not available, you can run that drone squad if you want. That's a pretty good honorable mention, as well as the strike team, just depending if you could actually get that level of score in a competitive match. So the next best class setups we'll talk about are for the SOG 9mm. There's actually a few different ones depending on which pro player you watch. They have different preferences, just like we all have our own preferences as well. So the 3 best class setups we're going to look at are for the SOG 9mm. I have 2 different hardpoint class setups and then 1 class setup for S&D and control. So the first one, we can see that someone's running the ELO sight with a grip, quick draw, and stock. Then we have 2 trophy systems, stim shot, as well as dexterity. So for the second class setup, you can see that we dropped that ELO and now we have tactical mask, as well as you can alternate between the trophy system and concussions. It just really depends on what role you want to fill and what your team needs. And then for the third class setup, you can see for S&D and control, you can pretty much run the same attachments: grip, quick draw, stock. Still have that stim shot, but now we're rocking dexterity with lightweight. And then we also have dead silence. So what you'll notice is kind of that pattern emerging. So if you go ahead and venture off and start creating your own classes, make sure that a lot of your S&D classes, as well as control, do have that dead silence. Obviously dead silence isn't as useful as it is in public matches because in competitive play you can't run the acoustic sensor. So just by removing the acoustic sensor from the equation, you can see that every time you play hardpoint, no one even cares about dead silence. You don't need to know where people are coming from, because at the end of the day it really just comes down to those gunfights, making sure you're protected, whether it's with a trophy system, taking people out with a concussion, or making sure that you have that tac mask to give yourself a little bit of defense. So you can see kind of the little trends depending on what mode it's in. Then obviously you take the best attachments for those specific weapons. So at this point we've already covered 5 different class setups, and I've already given some recommendations on score streaks. Let's go ahead and get into the top 2 best class setups, which center all around the same weapon, which is the Maddox. So as I mentioned earlier, the biggest difference in this class setup is going to be between S&D and control versus hardpoint. So as far as the attachments go, pretty much we're using the same thing you use in public matches, because this happens to be the absolute best class setup without any restrictions. You got the ELO, quick draw 1, quick draw 2, and stock. And as you can see, we're running that tac mask, dexterity, and dead silence for S&D and control with the stim shot. And then when we go ahead and jump over to hardpoint, You can see we dropped that dead silence or a trophy system, but you could easily swap that out for concussion. It just really depends. Those are the main two things you're going to use in competitive. So one thing I really recommend you guys understand about these modes is that they're completely different than when you play public matches. And that's regardless of the restrictions. Obviously the restrictions kind of handicap certain weapons. Obviously the Rampart's nowhere near as good without High Cal 1 and High Cal 2. But I think it really comes down to the change of behavior of the different players in the specific match. Typically when you play team deathmatch or even hardpoint or control in a regular public setting, the thing that most people are trying to do above all else is just to get as many kills. You guys have seen it. You guys play with and against those players where all they care about is how many kills they get. They do not care about the win. But as we transition into the competitive playlist and we get into league play, what you're going to notice is that this behavior changes drastically. The stats probably don't really matter when it comes to KD. All that really matters is the win. You're going to see that behavior shift, so everyone focus on actually playing the objective. So it'll be a lot different. You'll see how the behavior of actual players change. So when you push a hill, it's not going to be by yourself. When you lock down an area, it's not going to be by yourself. And ideally, you're going to be playing with friends. But if you're not, I highly encourage you to set up your mic so you'll at least be able to communicate with your teammates that are random. Also, one other side note that a lot of times people miss is that team killing's enabled. So you're going to want to make sure that you have that good trigger discipline to know where all your teammates are at all times. So you're not shooting them in the back and that you're not jumping in front of teammates and ruining their shot, because you will get killed by your own teammate. That pretty much wraps up the video. Hopefully you guys can do me a big favor. Leave me down a comment below with a little bit of feedback. Let me know if you're excited for league play and if you think there's any best class setups that I missed. If you did find the video helpful or enjoyed it in any way, please remember to hit that like button. Let's see if we can get this video over 500 likes. And if you are brand new to the channel, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. See y'all in the next one. Appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.